Hello, today is December 6th, and we're doing government and social stories to share with your friends. This is the L1 show. We don't do stories about that thing anymore.
There's a lot of happenings you should be aware of.
That thing?
I can't say it because, if you put it, yeah.
Is it coming back? Is it not coming back? I don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So,
That's like the Who's on First Orwell edition.
yeah. That's the word we can't say in the title. Well, okay, that's an L. That doesn't narrow down.
Anyway,
It's follow along links with friends.
Yeah.
here's another story that for the longest time was kind of on that list, right? For major media.
Yeah.
They would cover it somewhat, but they were very velvet glove. And now
This is the most velvet glove thing I've ever read.
it still is, yes. But at the very end, they are now actually taking a stand on the other side.
The Guardian's headline is "Publishing is not a crime. Media groups urge the U.S. to drop Julian Assange charges." The reason this is in the news now is because Australia has declined to challenge the extradition, which conveniently is not mentioned in the article. I really think that article is designed to co-opt any attention that you might give a Julian Assange into something that's vaguely feel good, but will ultimately result in nothing substantive for him. Now, he's not, but what is happening to him should not be happening to anyone.
And it's 12 years.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what struck me when I read that.
The man has been in a kind of prison
Yes.
for the entire time, in actual prison for a decent amount of that time, and he's got no hope.
No, but it's insane. It's absolutely insane. We got a story later. That should have been the next story about how involved people were in the government to try to get him out of the Ecuadorian embassy, and that it was all as cloak and dagger as it was should give you pause because that's the level of corruption. It's shocking.
That could not be the next story because that is a UK story.
We got all these subcategories in the
It makes
stories
sorting
now.
so much faster. We're never going back.
Yeah, that was technically a U.S. story.
Right.
Yeah.
It could have gone in the business, but I feel like it's more of a government story.
The article in the Guardian did talk a lot about the business implications and some of the other stuff, which I thought was interesting because it's not like those are secondary knock-on effects, not the real thing.
I assume that a lot of those letters came from the CIA plants in the newspapers rather than any actual reporters.
Yeah, because this story is just weird. Like it's so, I just don't think it hits the mark at all.
It hits the mark they want it to, which is the look over here mark. And we learned about, this is one of the fallout items of which is uncontrolled AI growth. And luckily, they all did basically stupid things, but this one definitely maliciously hampered some people who were just trying to live.
Department of Justice opens an investigation into real estate tech company accused of collusion with landlords. The DOJ is going to examine whether RealPage helped landlords coordinate rent increases. Questions also swirl around the 2017 merger deal with its largest competitor. Look, you don't need RealPage to do that. If you have two companies that own tens of thousands of properties in a small community, it's going to happen.
But if you recall, when we covered the story,
They literally had a quote.
Yeah, the quote was something like, if you have one outlier who's pricing low, it can ruin everything. We stop that.
Yeah, they were literally talking about how they were, no, this is great. We would have never, in previous years, we would have never been able to get away with this, but now we can. And I was like, oh.
Whatever agents are assigned to that case should have a pretty easy December.
Yeah.
They have a lot of downtime, spend a lot of time with their family, because this is a slam dunk.
I had to
You
buy
would think.
12 feet of baseboard for my mom's house, and it was $30 a board. Those same baseboards a year ago were $10 a board. I want the DOJ to look into the Lowe's pricing because something ain't right there.
Is that wasn't it lumber? Is lumber still shortage?
Yeah, it's everything. It's
Yeah.
raging inflation. I mean, you can blame some of that on the housing stuff, but when they've announced that their software gets around lowering prices.
Are you getting as much as you can for your baseboards? It's like, well, where else am I going to go to get baseboard? I guess I'll deal with that.
There aren't really a lot of hardware stores here.
The forest.
Look at this lovely tree bark motif.
I guess you could. There are a lot of lumber mills here, but they don't have finished stuff like that. You would have to do it yourself.
Yeah, it's a long process, and you'd have to treat it, right?
Yeah.
That's probably the one thing that would stop you.
Dry it in a kiln or something, not necessarily treat it.
Well, this is a little bit older story. I don't think we covered it though. However, we have talked about this exhaustively over the years because it's never really stopped happening as far as I know. But for whatever reason, Meta is now paying attention to it. Could it be because Mr. Elon Musk is setting a new standard for not overlooking this kind of thing?
Meta claims U.S. military linked to online propaganda campaign. Ooh, it's a spicy headline. And when you dig into it, it's stuff we've already covered on this program several times, but it's getting mainstream attention. And Meta seems to be using it as a kind of defense to say, well, if this isn't okay for other countries to do this, then maybe it's not okay for the U.S. to do this. At least that was my impression of what they're doing.
And they removed them for the first time ever. So like they had this. This is the fake person. It's not very well done, actually.
No, her face looks too tiny for.
And the coloring's kind of weird. This is the real person that they copied it from. So they had just a variety of fake accounts who were saying a lot of really great things about the U.S. and a lot of really bad things about like the Middle East and Russia. Down here, you see that Twitter just recently discovered the same thing. And of course, I believe that's why Meta was like, oh no, we'd better remove those. And Apple is catching a lot of flack from basically everybody. We'll have a lot of anti-Apple in the business section, but the whole Chinese revolution thing is really putting a spotlight on them.
Senator attacks Apple's unconscionable Chinese policy and demands answers. There's the list of questions there. Let me just sum this up for you. This is more political maneuvering, and it's not any kind of... Okay, when will Apple condemn the treatment of workers in Zhengzhou? Why has it not already condemned this treatment? Blah, blah, blah. The last one is, why did Apple limit airdrop in China? That one's a kind of that's a really interesting one. But again, I think this is political maneuvering more than someone who has just woken up. Because Apple's been doing this for 10 years. Like what's going on in that province has been happening for 10 years. It's kind of a hot thing right now because we have this, Cold War, I don't know what to call it, with China going on.
Probably going to be a hot war eventually.
Yeah, but the airdrop thing, okay, maybe that's a bridge too far, but
it's not the first time Apple has done something like that. It's not the first time Google has done something like that.
Yes.
All the tech companies do whatever.
Even the non-tech companies, like, is there any concern about that from like clothing companies?
Tesla?
Yeah.
There really has been a shift here because remember the NIST, look at Tor. Like in the current government, in the current government climate, would we fund Tor? Tor was originally funded in no small part with U.S. government money because it was like we need a free and open internet in places like Iran, and we're not saying we're going to foist American ideals into China with the way our technology operates. It's like no, because you won't be allowed to do business there.
Well, there's a lot of business there.
That's like. I think that the questions from Hawley are dishonest because it ultimately becomes how do you do business there, but champion individual freedom if that's what things are actually about. Oh wait, that's not. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, couldn't he introduce some sort of legislation to prevent human rights abuses like that? That wouldn't just target Apple?
Not that has any chance of doing anything because China's kind of embedded in our government.
So just make these statements. Yeah, this is just political posturing.
It is really crazy because in like the 40s, 50s, and 60s, like the steel breaking up the steel barriers. It was like a lot of the steel companies. My impression of it was we're going to do this for shareholders. We're going to make money, and those are the only people we care about. And a lot of the legal cases from the government side is like, no, as a corporation, you have a right or you have a responsibility to public good. Like how do you balance the public good with what the shareholders get? And it's like we've lost that completely.
Well, one company that definitely doesn't do that is Apple, as we pointed out, and certainly in China we can point to a lot of horrible things that they've done, but they've done some horrible things here too, like rolling out products that are terrible and pretending that they're not terrible, and they have to be sued for that.
Judge approves Apple's plan to pay $50 million MacBook Butterfly keyboard lawsuit settlement. So if you got stung by this, the butterfly, flow like a, never mind. You get
Butterflies do not
$125.
sting.
You float like a butterfly and you sting like a bee.
Right, but
Yeah. No, that's not okay.
are there any butterfly? I bet there's like one butterfly out there that stings, right?
At this
Not
point,
in the
I'm
US.
scared of butterflies.
Who knows what weird allergic reaction you'll have to them.
So this is going to be, what was it, 50 million, so 13, 14, 15, about 17 of that will come right off the top, go to the lawyers and processing and so forth. I think it said you can expect about
$125.
300 if you had 2 keyboards, 125 if you didn't, and 50 if you only got replacement keycaps. It'll just be worth filling out the paperwork at the $50 level.
This keyboard was a crime against humanity, and that's all they get. That's just.
I mean, if you're going to charge them more than 50 million for that keyboard, we're going to charge them for the App Store.
That's an antitrust. That's what that is.
Well, TikTok, not popular among the government, and more and more states turning their back on it.
South Dakota bans TikTok from government-owned devices. South Dakota's a little slow to the uptake here. It's been banned on federal devices for quite some time. South Dakota's reasoning is also a little brain dead. It's not spying or anything like that. It's addictive.
We found that our employees were taking too much time TikToking instead of doing their jobs.
Yeah, it's just okay. Well, but did you do any just okay? It's probably the feds came into somebody's office and then there was a game of telephone and this is where we ended up.
Well, I think it's Kristi Noem is, like a super right-wing governor.
Mm-hmm.
She's in that hole. So beautiful though. Lovely woman. Yeah, and now that we have the big FTX crash and crypto is down, everybody who had grudgingly been like, well, maybe crypto's okay, have immediately jumped back to the other side of the fence.
Bitcoin, quote unquote, rarely used for legal transactions and quote unquote on the road to irrelevance, say European central bank officials. This memo reads like it was written in 2019 and put in a drawer until after the crypto boom was over.
And of course, we now have to vilify it so that we can replace it with central bank digital currencies.
Oh, that's so much better.
And there's been a lot of talk. I didn't add all the stories, but there's a lot of stories about this new UK online safety plan. It's the same kind of horrible stuff that CISA and what were some of the other acronyms for
The license to get online.
it was the ones we did in this country, like all the child safety nonsense. But it's the same old pattern. You take something horrible and then you add something just unbearable at the end of it. And then everybody goes crazy and you're like, all right, we'll take away the unbearable part. And suddenly
You're just left with the horrible part.
it doesn't seem as horrible, even though it's the same horror.
UK waters down the internet rules plan after a free speech outcry. It is unfortunately still horrible.
Look at her giving like the polite, you make eye contact with someone at the grocery store and you do that weird smile.
Well, you guys are stupid, but I can't help you. So the bigger thing here, and this was crazy, is that they added content or language that said that they must remove content that is harmful but legal. Who decides what that is? And if it's legal, what right do you have to force people to remove it? Wouldn't that de facto make it illegal?
I'm pretty sure that means that speech like the prime minister is a chatterhead. Oh, that's harmful. It's legal, but it's harmful. That'll have to be removed.
How about throw eggs at the king? That might actually be illegal over there, right?
Yeah. That's some form of assault, right?
Well, this, unfortunately, I never found a non-paywall alternative for this. So I assume they had some better examples. We've talked about plenty of examples of this, but Gil Whitehead in particular, you should look at Gil Whitehead.
UK, this is in Bloomberg too, so it's a little bit more mainstream. I thought that's why you included it. The headline was UK Internet Watchdog increasingly led by ex-big tech executives.
I tried to find a paywall alternative because there was a challenge in the document to do so. I could not find one on DuckDuckGo or Google.
This is a smaller trend, which is part of a larger trend for these tech companies to get their people on the committees for the review. Now, it's happening more in the EU than the UK because more money's on the line, but they're getting stung by all these, 10, 20, $30 million fines. And so their way to sort of get around that was to get their people get the revolving door going and get their people on these committees that are reviewing this. And this is just more of the same in the UK.
Of course, the ISP's been doing this for decades, and their energy companies longer than that.
Yeah. An oil company, yeah, energy, yeah. But oil, good Lord, oil invented that playbook.
I don't know. I think maybe sugar beat them to it.
The Chiquita banana stuff is really insane.
Fruit. Well, did we have processed sugar before we started?
Sugar cane.
Yeah.
But I wonder which one came first.
Fruit came first, I think,
Fruit?
because we had carrots. Remember when
Man,
carrots were sweet?
I know fruit came before sugar, but I'm saying, like, where did the manipulation start?
My gosh, raw carrots are delicious.
You're at the point now where you haven't had regular sugar that carrots actually taste sweet?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's nuts.
That I bet
That's almost worth it to give up sugar.
Have you ever heard of in some Asian countries they will actually give you like roundworm as a weight loss thing?
Oh yeah.
If we could control the tick bites to give them, just the sugar limitation and the meat limitation, some people would probably sign up for that.
There's if you go too hard, there's a chance of like ketoacidosis and just crazy stuff like that. So you can't. That's
Well,
sort of bad.
Don't
one
people
man,
do that on purpose though? Like
Yeah.
the keto diet?
Oh yeah.
yeah, and it can mess you up too because like your body is just all at once eating all the bad stuff that you've stored.
Yeah.
Which is so horrifying because you're just a big blob of bad stuff.
You didn't know you were eating that stuff all the time, and they were like, "This is good for you. It's a good alternative because you shouldn't be eating real butter." And then it's like, no.
Now I don't know what the repast is like in European prisons. I think it's considerably better. In U.S. prisons, it's mostly just carbohydrates. Like they want you like lethargic and low energy,
Carved out.
easy to control. So one man who has not been able to control his sugar intake or his PUFA intake or anything is Mr. Julian Assange.
Operation Pelican to seize Assange involved 15 UK government agents. If you only read one story this week, you should read this and then do some more searching because this is the paywall alternative, right? I'm really surprised there hasn't been an Intercept expose or like many larger versions of this. Actually, even on both sides.
On Google News, I got paywalled whatever I was looking at this, right? So I went to Google News and I typed in Operation Pelican. This is the only story.
Good Lord.
It's amazing. The
That's
control
disturbing.
They're putting over that.
That is really disturbing.
Another interesting thing about the Google search, I wanted to watch the Yay InfoWars video. So
Can't even touch that one.
I put Kanye on InfoWars full video into Google. I went 7 pages before I gave up. It will not return InfoWars.com. I had like 100 news stories about it, but they would not return the actual video.
Good Lord. Well, anyway, this story though, like it's jaw-droppingly insane. This could be a Netflix special, and no one would ever believe that this is real.
Now, think about this, right? Because they describe how everybody was in a room watching the video.
They got signed plaques after it.
You know where else all that happened? Zero Dark 30. When we went after the leader, the biggest terrorist in the universe, and killed him and threw him off a boat. It was the same kind of operation that was carried out against Julian Assange.
What does that and so he's been under this much of a microscope, and all they've been able to dig up on what he has done is publish things. That should tell you something. But also, not just that. I got to give props because they got this treasure trove of info, like the signed letters and stuff, and they actually asked. It's like, hey, were you part of this? Like, was this person in your office? Like, no, our office doesn't have anything to do with that. That's impossible. There's no way that would happen. And then it's like, well, that's weird because I've got this thing that you signed that's like a commemorative plaque on Operation Pelican or whatever. And it's like, what? Where did you get that? That's a level of duplicity that is well practiced, which as a citizen, you should be super worried about.
And this might show you just how much power Apple has in terms of, yes, Apple will do almost anything the CCP tells them to do, but there's only one reason they'll do that, and that's profits. And when those profits are threatened, it might have to go in the other direction just a little bit.
CNN Business reports China's Zhengzhou, home to the world's largest iPhone factory, ends its lockdown for the thing, and other cities do the same. Now, there's a lot of protests and a lot of stuff happening here. The CNN Business article kind of touches on that a little bit. We were very circumspect when we've touched it in the past. There's a lot of reading you have to do, a lot of interesting things happening there. You really should do your homework there because, like, the blank sheets of paper thing, like, that's, like, keep going, like, keep digging. A lot of interesting stuff. But the whole reason, yes, China, what you were saying, but also India is ramping up their... what would you call it? Their business machinery,
manufacturing
machinery, and that is another reason why China is like, all right, we're gonna deal with this.
But if you're someone in India who like might get one of those jobs someday, you have to be looking into the future and seeing this horror coming to you.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have the same level of power and maybe even more because now they know the playbook.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've lived after years of.
Do you have? Is it? I mean, it's not. We can get a little off track because we don't have a lot of stories. But
Yeah.
would you, from a social mobility standpoint, my impression of India is that people in India are probably in a better shape than China, but China's probably more organized and daily life is probably more stable.
But India, the problem they have is they are just still rapidly expanding the population. So as long as you're doing that, there's always going to be those people on the margins who you can throw into a factory and lock them up.
Which is what they literally do.
Which is the reason that China's not as attractive anymore because they're starting to go middle class and the family size is coming down. The whole Bill Gates dichotomy.
Well, yeah, and then there's also, we want to be paid. We don't want to have suicide nets outside of our office.
They'll just build the suicide nets in advance in India.
Yeah, they already know that.
And they'll probably have robots on the roof too. Right?
Well, so in that general trajectory, though, as you become a family and more middle class, arguably you're more economically productive and more economically valuable. At least that's what the pattern has been so far.
But not the Apple.
Yeah, not the Apple.
Yeah.
But
and you have to keep prices to a certain point so people continue to buy your stuff. So they just keep making labor cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
Well, so then it's maybe a question of government motivation. Does the government of India or the government of China, do they want to keep the factory type work, or do they want to have the expanded economic possibilities of a more mobile middle workforce?
I think they're very happy to sacrifice the happiness and lives of their people to maintain
Both of them?
This.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think you're probably right in China.
I mean, Xi, obviously.
Yeah.
But what have we seen that Modi has done that has pointed to anything other than...
I think Modi's trying, but I think the chaos of India is really working against him. So I don't know that he'll be able to do that.
Well, I would, if we were going to make a column of reasons not to trust Modi and reasons to trust Modi, I would put probably in the number one slot on the not to trust column, this.
India cenbank, the central
What a
bank,
We really
weird way
don't
of-
need to.
Yeah.
to start pilot of retail digital rupee on December 1st. We actually have a lot of viewers in India. Engagement challenge. What are your thoughts on this? Like, I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah, they're on the ground. They can tell you what it's like.
Yeah, not just the digital rupee, but also, changing the industry there and the urbanization of the really rural parts,
Now, we talked about the Federal Reserve, our central bank, is trialing, I think it already started, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to be bank-to-bank payments. Well, India already did that trial. This is the retail arm. So they're actually looking to roll out digital currency to the masses.
Our digital currency trial, though, is really barely more than just a ledger for interbank loans. It used to be just an Excel spreadsheet that was emailed.
It's so they can green stamp it and be like, oh, yeah, works great. Give it to the people.
Yeah.
And Singapore has taken a very interesting take on Internet of Things. It's something that you don't have to buy, you don't have to put in your house, although it probably is still spying on you in some way.
Singapore branches out into Internet of Trees. LiDAR, AI, and sensors manage millions of plants and have greatly reduced accidents. So they're putting sensors on trees. It was like, oh, this tree moved a lot. We should send somebody to check on it. These are trees in urban areas and parks and that sort of thing. So they're able to find when something is going wrong with the trees, but also when the tree just gets old, it needs to be replaced. So they're dealing with it that way by collecting lots and lots of data.
A tree fell on a woman who was in a park watching a concert, and apparently that was just a major drama in Singapore because I was like, no, not the trees. I get the impression that most of their trees are urban because they are so overdeveloped, but they're like, we must keep the trees.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like we got to figure out how to live with them among a cityscape.
Yeah.
And when they fall down, it's a huge issue. So monitor them constantly. I don't like to just use tweets as news stories, but I mean, this one's from the horse's mouth. This kicked off a huge firestorm. Now, it has been walked back at this point. So he claims he has gone directly to Tim Cook and they've worked it out. But for a while, this was contentious.
The tweet from Elon Musk is, Apple has also threatened to withhold Twitter from its app store, but won't tell us why. Now, the follow-up tweet, also from Elon Musk, says that he and Tim Cook had a productive meeting on Apple's campus. Mr. Musk tweeted a lot of pictures from Apple's campus. It's like, oh, it's so beautiful. Said, we worked out our differences. It was a misunderstanding.
I would say we have to give him the point for that one, right?
Yeah.
Point to Musk. And Twitter is also making another decision has made another decision that's going to infuriate a lot of people.
Twitter is no longer enforcing its misinformation policy about the thing. So, interesting. Musk also tweeted some stuff about election interference and just all sorts of things.
Did you know that items from the L1 store actually treat the thing? Store.level1text.com.
That
Not
is
true.
misinformation. Did you also notice that some people made a lot of mea culpas after he revealed that he was going to give that information out?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, a lot of people were like, okay, we made a mistake. We'll admit. And Mark Zuckerberg, 2022 has, it's been a big problem for him. He's been shown that he is bad at his job. I think we've all known it for a while, but it was never, the meteoric growth made it hard
You sound like the shareholders.
to make the case. But decidedly now, he has failed in so many ways. And certainly he won't double down, right?
CoinDesk says that Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg is still, quote unquote, long-term optimistic on the metaverse. The skepticism doesn't bother me much, CEO of Facebook's parent company said at the Dealbook Summit on Wednesday. So
I bet it does.
the bookmakers have Elon Musk have Mark Zuckerberg stepping down as Meta CEO in the beginning part of the year. I think shareholders are sort of working behind the scenes. A little birdie told me the shareholders are working behind the scenes to make that happen, and maybe taking whatever metaverse team he has left, like spinning that off into its own company, and then Meta will be its own thing. It's totally unsubstantiated, but there's a lot of pressure building for a Zuckerberg exit.
That's probably wise, but I do kind of like in the long term, I do think he's right. I just don't know if his version will be the one to usher it in.
Well, there are a lot of versions. And there was a gold rush to try to get your version out. And it didn't seem to matter that the metaverse it wasn't really anything.
Yeah.
It was really just about staking your claim for the eventual invention that would make the metaverse something.
Yeah.
But how long can that keep up?
Brands filing for trademark applications for the metaverse have waned. Yeah.
Maybe all like 5 of our major tech companies have already done it, and that's why.
We've got some really funny stories in the nonsense section. You're going to have to wait until Friday for that. Or if you're on Patreon and Flowplane, you need to get them right now.
But what if you already invested in your metaverse, right? Like you were like, hey, I see where things are going. I can tell which way the wind's blowing. Let's get a metaverse no matter what it costs. Well, it's probably going to be a bad time for you.
The EU has thrown a party in a 387,000 euro metaverse, and hardly anyone turns up. See, I didn't understand what they meant. It's like, did no one tell them that you can throw a party in the metaverse without really spending any money?
No, I think they paid that to secure the metaverse and build it. And so they had this big party, and this was to like hype people for the European Union Foreign Aid Department. That's who threw this in. 5 people showed up.
Can you imagine in the age like when GeoCities was a new thing, if somebody said, I paid $387,000 for somebody to put together a GeoCities page?
I think it's the monetization part is what confuses me about all this, because it's like I've spent a New Year's Eve with my friends in a Minecraft server, but if someone told me you needed to pay $300,000 for that, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that.
But Minecraft is a good product and there's things to do in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what do you do at a party in the metaverse?
Your avatar dances and they play music. And so the 5 people showed up and then immediately all trickled away.
They could have just had the event in Minecraft.
Oh, it's embarrassing. I'm like embarrassed for them.
Well, they thought they were going to have so many people that a Minecraft server couldn't handle it. But I had another thought there.
Oh yeah, it's the beginning of November too.
Yeah, there's a forum thread for that.
Yeah, we're going to run it a little later, like into January this year, but starting, be thinking of your projects and be thinking of your builds in Minecraft.
It's going to be hard for them to keep raising the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I think they've almost tapped out Minecraft because we made it as hard as possible and it was still just an obscene amount of...
But now they're going to have an extra month, so it'll just be ridiculous. It'll probably destroy the server.
Well, we run it for a few months after every year. So, I mean, that's not unheard of.
And what do you know? Another fine for Facebook. It's just, they never stop coming. And I think this goes back to what you were talking about and what we're talking about with, what was that guy's name? Gil Whitehead. The reason you desperately, desperately need a Gil Whitehead working for you, but actually being in government.
Facebook, Meta, fined $275 million in data leak case. Irish data regulators have fined Facebook's parent company a total of nearly $1 billion related to data breaches. Turns out it doesn't matter that Ireland's not a tax haven anymore. They can just, fine Meta for whatever they need to balance their books. It's fine.
It's fine. That was a pun. And Telegram, it's one of those like, hey, encryption, be safe. But when it actually comes down to the brass tacks and someone like Modi demands that data, will they stand up?
Telegram shares users' data in copyright violation lawsuit. Oh, literally the thing that we've been warning you about.
Another one bites the dust.
I wonder if people will stop using Telegram now.
End to Modi encryption. And Google, we're working on a script and I was like trying to think of good things Google has done this year.
It's not a lot.
Has there been anything?
And I was like, well, some people like that Pixel phone, right? But I think that was just all hype.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody actually liked the Pixel phone.
This is an ancient Pixel. This is only just now coming to pass.
But the current one got a little bit of love, right?
Well, it's only because the last one, the one before the current one was so bad. The current one is better than that one.
Google Fonts is nice.
Hey,
Google
listen,
Maps is all right.
That's been working for governments for a really long time. But they really wanted to sell these phones and they took some shortcuts.
Influencers were paid by Google to promote a Pixel phone they never used. But when you dig into it, no, not influencers, radio DJs. Those are a different critter. And it was the Pixel 4. So this has been a while ago.
Either way, though,
you should read the quotes in this article because these horrible morning DJs who all have the same personality. My God, it's unlistenable. They're saying stuff like, "Oh my God, I'm taking so many pictures here in the studio."
What is there even pictures to take in a studio?
Here's the sound mixer. Here's another sound mixer. Look at the levels. All the LEDs are going up and down on the sound mixer.
Wow.
I've been taking studio-like photos of everything. It's also great for helping me get stuff done. Thanks to the new voice-activated Google Assistant. They might as well have the trademark logo in the speech. I can handle multiple tasks at once. Oof.
Google has lost their way so completely that the people that are doing like Stable Diffusion and the GPT chat, that didn't come out of Google. That you would honestly expect that to have come out of Google. There's got to be somebody having a meeting inside Google right now that is, guys, we invented TensorFlow. We have tensor cores. How did we screw this up?
I think there's you could write a long paper on how they screwed it.
That's what they want the Google Assistant to be, and yet it's worthless.
I bet GPT could put together a pretty good report on them for what they screwed up.
Arguably, Google search is worse now than it was 5 years ago.
So many ads.
They've managed to mess up search, which is
unbelievable, considering their website was always like a breath of fresh air when it first came out because it was really just the Google logo and a search bar.
That'd be like Chick-fil-A saying like, we can't get the chicken right anymore.
Yeah. What else is there? Waffle fries?
And Android is an amazing dumpster fire that is just no. It's like, how do you screw up messaging people and taking calls? It's just
Well, a lot of people are probably going to be abandoning those platforms, although you can't really abandon Android except go to Apple, which is just, maybe the Tesla phone. Oh, that's going to be a train wreck. But in social media world, we also have a lot of people looking for a new home. And the problem is when a bunch of people rush into a community, it tends to like flex the seams and point out the weak points.
Hive Social turns off servers after researchers warn hackers can access all data. Yeah.
It's kind of a bad one.
I think, didn't that come up a couple episodes ago? And I was like,
I don't remember. No, not even.
There's so many like all trying to take Twitter's place right now.
And the thing that Twitter has is all the people, just like YouTube. And you can't escape it. I don't know what the answer is. I want to
escape it.
The answer is Patreon and Floatplane. Join us there.
Yeah, but I mean, you're just never going to get most people to do that.
Yeah.
It's like turn signals. It makes sense. There's no reason not to do it, but you're never going to make people do it.
Or the lines in the parking lot. There's someone parallel parked. Usually you park like on a diagonal, and this person's just parked taking up 3 theoretical spots right now.
But they did resurface the road and they never painted the lines back. And you think to yourself, well, that's probably not that big a deal. It's a huge deal.
It's a huge, yeah. The amount of people parallel parking on the side of the street right now.
People need those lines desperately. And yay, I've learned it's yay, not ye. And then he takes
because it's Kanye.
He takes it very seriously.
Well, the man wore a black mask to me. I mean,
he does not like. Also, gloves. I don't know what the gloves.
Was
it's a Balenciaga thing. Their whole line is like that.
Was he intentionally dressing up as Cobra Commander?
Oh, that's a wait. Balenciaga sells a mask like that.
Yeah. So their whole thing, like I think last year, their whole line was like weird full body suits and stuff. Like that was their their
clear
collection.
I think Alex Jones might be cutting costs because this production crew were not doing well during that live broadcast. And they had a hard time like getting people on the phone and stuff. But the most hilarious thing was Kanye's take on the Balenciaga thing is he's like, no, Balenciaga's fine. I'm friends with those people. Stop being mean to them. But while he was saying that, they were running visual memes and stuff that InfoWars had made anti-Balenciaga.
Not my favorite fashion house, but
we'll talk more about Balenciaga in the nonsense section. But yeah, Ye is having a bad time. He's trying to throw his money around, what's left of it, but I don't know if he's going to have any success.
He is no longer buying Parler.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, Parler, its user base is not huge, right?
No, and it's probably expensive to upkeep.
He did point out, did I miss that one? He pointed out during the InfoWars stream that he still had his 35 million Twitter subscribers and he was going to like help people who'd been banned. He's now been suspended from Twitter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he posted some iconography that Twitter found unacceptable. The things he said on that broadcast.
He's losing it.
He's trying to be controversial. I don't know what he's doing.
I think he's genuinely mentally ill.
I'll tell you one thing about it, though. It's entertaining.
That's why people watch it.
I'm just going to go back to Cosmeteer. All
right. Going to be short ones this week because we went Monday to Friday because of the live stream on Monday. So
I feel like I've been in a weird parallel reality for the last week because I've been like robo-tripping.
Mm. Did you get any, like, take a spirit journey? Did you learn anything about yourself?
I had really vivid but mundane dreams. Like I dreamt I went to the grocery store and bought honey and dill because I needed some in real life.
How was the inflation in Dreamland?
You know, I don't remember that. I do have like a distinct memory of driving to the grocery store and like checking out and picking all my stuff and blah, blah, blah. And then when I woke up the next morning, I was like, oh, I have honey. But I didn't have honey. I'd ran out.
But what if you had?
That would have been insane. That would have been terrifying.
You had honey and the bottle had a little bit of blood on it.
Oh.
That'd be a good story. No. Anyway, tomorrow we'll come back with business and security.
We'll see you then.
So much.
Bye.